Hello everybody, Dan here from Healing Associates. Welcome to another video in our series where we ask business experts some of the burning questions that you speak to us about. So I'd love to welcome back to the video Becky and Kay from Peas in a Pod Consultant. So HR and business consultants, people we love dealing with. So thanks again for joining us. Today I wanted to talk about, we did a video on what happens if you're just looking to bring on your first employee and all that entails. And that's quite a hefty piece, isn't it, if you've not done it before. However, it doesn't really stop there, does it, as business owners? As hopefully the person's business has grown, you then move into this other stage where we're now looking at scaling up. So I wanted to talk a bit about some tips and some of the key themes really around this thing. So Kate, your experience of dealing with firms doing this, what are the type of things you see and some of the key things we should be thinking about?
Okay, well, we talked a lot in the recruitment video about company DNA, as I call it, or knowing the culture and values of your own organisation before you bring other people into it so that they can replicate and demonstrate and come on board with you on your journey. And that becomes even more crucial when you're talking about having multiple people in your organisation. One of the first and most crucial things we talk to people at scale up stage about is having a vision statement, a mission statement, and your values clear in your mind. And a lot of people think of these as marketing tools, and they absolutely are. People want to understand your organisational purpose because they want to be reassured that they can buy from you and you stand for the same things as they do. The same is true for your employees. The people who work with you want to understand how they contribute to the big picture. So in order to do that, you need to be really clear about the big picture. So the first thing we do is a strategic planning exercise, which sounds really, really scary, but it can literally be the back of a fag packet, and sometimes they're the best ones. And it's about sitting down and really thinking about your own business goals and start working from the really big picture, so your vision, what you're trying to create by being in your business, looking at your mission statement, the reason for your own existence, the driving force, the purpose, and starting to work back from there down to what you do on a day-to-day basis and how everybody contributes to that. So most people have heard the NASA example of when JFK walked around NASA and spoke to the janitor about his role and asked him what he did, and he said, "I helped put a man on the moon." That for me is the perfect example of an individual who understands the part he plays in the bigger picture. And the reason that is really, really important is because employees usually, and there are a couple of exceptions, start by wanting to do the right thing. But they all have a set of needs. We all do. We're all humans and we all have basic needs. In an employment scenario, one of those key needs is understanding what I do that contributes to the bigger picture. There are some other ones which we can move on to. But when you're talking about scaling up and bringing people on, that is probably your first consideration. How do I make sure all these people understand the bit of the jigsaw that they put in place to be able to build towards that vision of the better world we're trying to create in whatever field we're in. So that's my first piece of advice.
Brilliant, good. And I think it's one of those things that, again, it's like, oh, that's scary. But also you think, well, actually, we do need some, and you can read, and I know you two are readers as well, many business books that talk about, making sure you've got this defined vision and things. But it's true, I think it is true that exactly that is, how can you take people on a journey that you don't know what that journey looks like. So yeah, it definitely makes sense. And what sort of challenges have you come across then with people looking to scale up? Okay,
the main challenge is delegating the tasks but not the control. Quite often as business owners we're pulled in a million different directions, and we think about bringing new people into our organisations as an opportunity to offload some of those tasks so that we can get on with other things. It's really important, even from the point you have your first employee, to understand how you want them to perform in their role and that you manage against that. And what tends to happen when you're scaling up, especially if you're scaling up really fast, is that you're bringing all these people on, you're delegating the task, and you're also in some cases delegating the control, and you start to lose the control over the certain aspects of the business. And sometimes that works out okay, depending on who you get to come in the business and work with you. But often, even with the best of intentions, if people don't have a really clear remit that comes from their job description, that is as a result of the strategic plan, and it's all really nicely aligned up to that vision and mission, people will go wrong. And in that situation, mistakes will be made, And then there's a situation where you're growing so fast that you're taking on new work and you're not able to maintain the same quality. And the fear there is that you will start to experience some reputational damage, which will end up in loss of business. So I'd say the key struggles we encounter with our scale-up clients is where they're growing really, really fast and it's almost too fast to keep up. And they're then trying to retrospectively put all these really good employment practices in place at the same time as allocate enough time to manage people so that they can retain the control and therefore retain their good reputation and that making sure their quality is where it needs to be.
Yeah.
I think one of the key phrases I use there is that you delegate responsibility, you don't delegate accountability. So if you delegate responsibility and that person doesn't perform in the way that they're being offered in terms of that responsibility, then the accountability still comes down to that company owner. It is still their reputation, it is still their legal risk, it's still their financial risk. And some of the problems we encounter with our clients is a lack of understanding of that and a frustration when things go wrong and a blame culture that can quite often then ensue as a result of not misunderstanding that you can never delegate accountability. No. Accountability always comes back to you.
Yeah, I completely get that. I think that as a business owner, I think, and it's lovely to hear you both talk about this, is I believe in the idea of this extreme ownership. You know, my name's on the door, everything's my fault ultimately, and I think it's a case of what I've found working with you guys is that in order to make this help this process is you need systems, policies and the like as you grow to sort of control this area. So it's been an interesting journey as a business owner myself. So yeah, interesting.
You absolutely do, from having the foundations in place that protect you against risk. But ultimately what we love about Helan's, and I'm not just saying this, is you create a culture of leadership which can be another challenge in itself. Some employers, they make the mistake of ticking all the compliance boxes and making sure that processes and procedures are in place, but they don't place enough emphasis on the culture of leadership that they're creating. Your Costa catch-ups, your constant communications with your employees to making sure they're okay, to making sure they're clear in terms of their work, their workload. Communication very much is the key to everything in relation to managing and leading employees, and that can quite often get missed or not enough emphasis placed on it in terms of the importance, and that's probably one of our other biggest tips. As your team grows, the need to communicate with them and the how encumbersome that is as a task, how much time that takes to communicate, whether that's through formal processes, informal ones, meetings, huddles, whatever it is, it becomes that much more important, but that much more time consuming, and it's the recognition of the fact that you need to invest in that time to communicate with your people so they are very, very clear in terms of both what's expected of them individually, but where you're also going as a company.
Yeah, and from a tip point of view, so if you've got let's say, because a lot of business owners aren't natural leaders, they've come into it often as an operator in a business that's grown and they've done a great job, and as a result they've grown, they've added people, and I imagine you guys must see that challenge a lot. Have you got any tips in terms of what you think people should do on maybe a personal development level, or to help them, I suppose, with that leadership type journey?
It's about understanding what good leadership involves. It's about taking the time to understand that leadership isn't just about telling people what to do. It's about leading by example. It's about choosing the right leadership style for the right situation. And so going on some personal development courses, reading some good books, it's time well spent and it will come back. And it's about recognising the investment, as Becky said. It will pay off in the long run to become better at this stuff. When we're talking about scale up, we focus a lot on the planning and building a plan that aligns really clearly with the vision and mission, that aligns really clearly with the job descriptions, that align really clearly with the performance expectation. But that's one side of kind of a two-sided flow. And the second side is about building that DNA and culture and behaviour, and that's all in line with the company values. So it's about not neglecting and a bit of a seesaw, trying to make sure that you're balancing both of those things by investing in yourself to be better at this stuff and understand this stuff and understand why it's so important.
We do quite a lot of work on employee engagement and the direct correlation of high employee engagement with high business output and productivity. And the only way you get high employee engagement, and therefore maximum amount of business productivity and output is by leading through influence as opposed to control. When you can influence your employees to want to do a good job, to come in every day and give 100%, then you know that you're an effective leader. And for us, that's really what the crux of what it comes down to.
Yeah, it's a great measurement, I think. Yeah, I like it. And when we touched on there about culture, and it would be remiss of us not to talk about that in a video like this. I mean, how important do you think culture is, and what's the benefit to a business owner of making sure this is a thing?
It's everything. Yeah. I mean, it does come down to the DNA of your organisation, what you stand for, how you want to treat the people that come into contact with you, what you want your customers to think about you, how you want your employees to feel, to be engaged, to do the best they can do for you, to make the most money. It really is, when I talk about the seesaw, just as important as all your planning and your finance, and you must concentrate on the culture of your business, because ultimately it's going to be how you're perceived from within and externally, and that really, really matters.
Yeah, no, I mean, we've certainly found that as from our experience in working with clients. I think that you can really see that in the retention numbers, really. And as we've spoke about, I think on a previous video, the cost of recruitment, as we're going to stick on cost here, the cost of recruitment is big, and getting it wrong is a costly exercise. So some investment in this type of area, especially from a scale up, I think for me is a critical piece of work. So it's interesting to see. I mean, if you were talking to a business owner now that's looking to scale up, they're on the edge about whether they need professional help, because it's worked okay so far. We've got 5-6 employees, it's all right. What would be your 3 sort of main tips and pieces of advice for somebody in this area of scale up?
My biggest one is invest in it, because it will come back. So lots of people will invest in making sure they tick all the right boxes, they've got the right policies, they've got the right paperwork, and that's an incredibly important side of what we all do. But making the same investment in the scale-up journey and understanding your business plan and understanding the culture and understanding the leadership and understanding all the, what I call the fluffy stuff, or we call the fluffy stuff, would be my top tip.
And then that was 2 tips. My third one from that would be, you can be a great visionary, but if you cannot apply and put that vision into an operational plan that your staff can follow and any future staff that you bring in can understand from a practical perspective, then all you've got is a vision. Yeah. You talk a lot, which is great, but it needs to be put in a practical implementation plan that can, so that vision can be realised. Yeah. So make sure you've got both those skill sets. You can be the visionary, you've also got to be the operational manager that can make that vision be realised.
And then the bonus point would be always refer back to it. So don't put those plans and those team days and those sessions in a drawer and forget about them. Always go back to it, revisit it. How are we doing? Checking in. Are we doing well? What's gone well? What hasn't gone? Why didn't it? Using that team brain approach, and actually not just seeing these as one-off moments in time that you then leave behind, but actually something that you're constantly working towards improving and building on.
And getting your employees buy-in throughout every step of that process, because they're the ones that are creating that vision for you.
Fantastic. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you both for those tips. I think they're really good to work on. I'd love to chat to you some more, because we could get into, what culture should we have? Should we have everyone coming in whenever they fancy, and, everything else? But it's been really great for you guys to come back and talk to us a little bit about that. So thank you very much.
No problem. Thanks for having us.
So if you've liked this video, make sure you check out the first one we did in the series, where we talked to Kate and Becky about starting from a basic, and even if you're scaling up, I think looking back at some of those things, and especially with regards to recruitment, would be a really, really good idea. So make sure to like and subscribe our videos and tell all your friends. Until the next one, we'll see you then.